They took everything: her company, her reputation, her silence. But they made one fatal mistake. They underestimated Camille Bennett's will to rise. From corporate exile to digital war room, Camille isn't looking for redemption. She's coming for a reckoning. More of a team player, I echoed, keeping my voice steady while my nails bit into my palm beneath the desk. Across from me, my manager, Helen McBride, sat in her corner office overlooking downtown Chicago. Mid-50s, blazer too tight, smile too polished. She leaned back, her tone syrupy. Camille, you're brilliant. But Rachel, she's got charm. People like being around her. She's just easier. Easier, not more capable, not more accomplished. Just easier. I was 41 now. I joined Westlake Strategies at 35, leaving behind a teaching job and plunging into corporate life with everything I had. 6 years of midnight reports, last-minute presentations, and salvaging client accounts no one else could touch. I doubled our Midwest portfolio, redesigned a training system, and saved the company nearly $2 million in operational waste. But Rachel, with her lunch selfies and carefully curated girl boss quotes, was getting the promotion. I watched Helen pretend to shuffle papers, waited for me to thank her, to be gracious. Instead, I slid a crisp white envelope onto her desk. I appreciate the feedback, I said with a calm smile. Here's my resignation, effective 2 weeks from today. Helen's composure faltered. Camille, wait, let's talk this through. No need, I said. You were clear, and I am focused on outcomes. That's why I'm leaving. What she didn't know, what no one had noticed, was that while Rachel was busy pleasing, I'd been building my own leadership development firm. Fully registered, quietly growing, profitable since Q2 I didn't lose today. I just outgrew the room. As I stepped out of Helen's office, I felt the shift ripple through the river north floor of Westlake Strategies. Heads turned, conversations quieted, and I knew Rachel was already imagining where she'd hang her girl boss poster above my old desk. But I moved with calm purpose, returning to my space like it was just another Monday. Because tucked inside that resignation envelope was a second document, one that would make Helen choke on her artisan latte. The following 2 weeks were theater. Rachel swanned through the bullpen with a latte in hand and a spotlight in her mind. On the 4th day, she leaned over my cubicle wall, lips curled in a smug half-smile. Cam, I hope you're not too disappointed. I mean, I know you wanted that spot. I met her gaze briefly while quietly backing up 3 years' worth of metrics, training manuals, and workflow optimizations. Not to take, but to document. Every dollar saved, every system I designed, every outcome attributed to my team. No hard feelings at all, Rachel, I said, smiling coolly. You'll shine. She left satisfied, but she didn't know what those results were built on. 3 years ago, in frustration, I'd started developing my adaptive team performance software, not on company time, not with their tools. And last week, the patent was approved. That second page of my resignation detailed its impact: millions in revenue and retention tied directly to my IP. 1 week later, I got an email from Jared Lewis, CEO of Architect Solutions, our top competitor. Over coffee, he offered me more than a role. He offered equity, autonomy, and a future. He slid a contract across the table. We've been waiting for someone like you, Jared said, his tone steady, sincere. Someone who understands that outcomes, not optics, build legacies. As I signed the partnership agreement, something shifted inside me. This was what real recognition felt like. Not applause for appearances, but respect for substance. On my final day at Westlake Strategies, just as I returned my access badge, Helen called me into her glass-walled office one last time. The polished calm she always wore had cracked. Her voice trembled. Camille, we need to discuss the report you attached to your resignation. She held up the printed document with stiff fingers. Why didn't you ever tell us about this platform you built? I sat down across from her, slowly straightening the hem of my navy blazer. I did, I replied. 3 separate proposals over the last 2 years. You dismissed each one, said your priority was improving interpersonal chemistry across departments. Her eyes scanned the pages, color draining from her face as she absorbed the data. Operational savings, automated workflows. Predictive project forecasting. And this is patented? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. Filed last fall, fully approved, and I've accepted an equity partnership at RK Tech Solutions. They're already preparing to scale it firm-wide. Helen exhaled sharply. Architect? Camille, no, you can't. That's our primary competitor in the Midwest. What about loyalty? I tilted my head slightly. Loyalty? You mean when you rewarded Rachel's charm over my contributions? Or when you sidelined my proposals because I didn't host enough happy hours? She opened her mouth, but I didn't wait. If you'd valued output instead of office politics, we wouldn't be here. We'll match their offer. Senior Vice President. Just stay. It was never about the title. It was about being valued. As I left, I heard the frantic dialing behind me, but the damage was already done. If you believe respect should be earned, not begged for, and you're ready to see what Camille builds next, make sure to follow along. Because what's coming isn't revenge. It's a reckoning. The storm had passed, but Camille Bennett was far from safe. The world she once ruled had been scorched by betrayal, and now she stood among the ashes. No longer the CEO of Bennett Innovations, no longer the figure of admiration and fear in the corporate world, just a woman with a name dragged through every tabloid and financial report, accused of insider trading, fraud, and corporate negligence. The irony? She had done none of it. In the weeks that followed her resignation, Camille found herself sinking deeper into the isolation that followed her disgrace. The mansion in upstate New York, once bustling with assistants, stylists, and advisors, was now ghostly silent. Reporters camped outside her gates, their lenses pointed at her windows like rifles ready to shoot the moment she faltered. But Camille didn't falter. Not yet. Instead, she transformed that silence into a kind of sanctuary. No more board meetings, no more PR managers spinning narratives she hadn't approved. Just Camille and the cold, bitter truth. She spent her days rereading internal reports, cross-referencing emails, and combing through financial discrepancies. The deeper she dug, the more the puzzle began to take shape. The signatures on the documents that led to her downfall weren't hers. The financial leaks? Timed too perfectly and too conveniently traceable to her logins. And then she remembered the one person with full access to everything, Marcus Dalton, her hand-picked chief strategy officer. The man she once considered the most trustworthy, executive in the firm, the man who had stayed strangely silent during her final days in the company. Camille booked a one-way ticket to Lisbon. Not for a vacation, those days were gone, but for clarity. Her former mentor, Elias Rocha, a retired investment analyst now living a quiet life in Portugal, had once told her, "If the walls in your house are caving in, find an old map and build a new one." She landed at dawn. The air was cooler than she expected, and as she rode the taxi through the narrow streets, Camille felt something uncoiling within her. The shame, the fury, the grief. It was still there, but muted now by something else. Purpose. Elias hadn't aged much. His hair had gone completely white, but his sharp, fox-like eyes hadn't dulled a bit. He welcomed Camille with a quiet hug and a long look that said more than words could. "I wondered how long it would take you," he said. Camille didn't speak. She just handed him a flash drive. Elias made espresso while scanning the files. "You know what this is?" she asked. He raised an eyebrow. "A carefully staged financial takedown. Someone buried you, Camille, and they knew exactly where to dig." She exhaled sharply. "I need to know how they did it, and how I take it back." Elias sipped his coffee, then leaned forward. "You don't take it back. You rebuild. And you burn the house they built over your grave." Back in New York, Marcus Dalton was thriving, or so it appeared. With Camille out of the picture, the board of Bennett Innovations had temporarily appointed him as interim CEO. Investors were wary, but Marcus charmed them with confident projections, inflated metrics, and insider knowledge that only Camille had ever had full access to. But something was off. The numbers were too clean. The projections are too perfect. Camille, now back in the U.S. under the radar, set up shop in a small apartment in Queens. No press, no limelight, just strategy. Her war room was digital, encrypted servers, a burner phone, and a VPN. And she wasn't alone. Elias had introduced her to Ana Martinez, a forensic accountant known for uncovering one of Europe's largest corporate embezzlement schemes. Ana, quiet but razor-sharp, saw the patterns Camille had missed. "Dalton knew you trusted him," Ana said. "That's how he cloaked the back-end triggers. The fake invoices, the shadow vendors. He planted them before you even realized it. And when it all collapsed, it looked like your signature was on every piece," Camille paced. "And the board bought it." Ana tapped her tablet. "Some of them didn't. They were just afraid." The next phase of Camille's revival came in the form of a whisper campaign. Not to smear Dalton, but to plant seeds of doubt. Anonymous emails are sent to journalists. Leaks hinting at irregularities in the company's finances after Camille's departure. Whistleblower-style documents are appearing on encrypted forums. Then came the tipping point. A senior engineer at Bennett Innovations, Nora Choi, reached out. Camille had once saved her job when a rival executive tried to throw her under the bus. Now, Nora returned the favor. "There's a back-end server running parallel analytics," she told Camille during a covert meeting in a Brooklyn coffee shop. "It's not part of our official systems. It tracks manipulated numbers, data that never appears on our shareholder reports." Camille's pulse quickened. "Can you prove it?" Nora nodded. "Already downloaded. But you'll need more than this. You'll need someone from the board." Camille leaned back, thinking. Then we find the weakest link. That link was Julia Penrose, a relatively new board member with a shaky voting record and ties to an activist hedge fund known for flipping companies. Julia had voted against Camille's removal initially but later switched sides. Ana found her weakness quickly. Her fund had invested heavily based on Dalton's promises. If Camille could prove that Dalton falsified projections, Julia's firm would suffer catastrophic losses. Camille arranged a private meeting. "I don't want to destroy Bennett Innovations," Camille said flatly. "I want to save it from Marcus Dalton, and I want you to help me." Julia hesitated. "Why should I trust you?" Camille slid a dossier across the table. "Because if you don't, your fund loses everything when the SEC gets wind of what Dalton's doing. Help me now, and you'll come out of this as the one who cleaned up the mess." With Julia's cooperation, things moved fast. She provided internal memos, private meeting notes, and most importantly, Dalton's unauthorized approval of high-risk international investments under false subsidiaries. Camille and Ana compiled it all. The night Camille submitted the full report to the EIE, SEC, and the financial press, she slept for the first time in weeks. Not out of peace, but out of readiness. 3 days later, the Wall Street Journal broke the story. Bennett Innovations faces internal scandal. Interim CEO implicated in financial misconduct. Marcus Dalton was arrested by the end of the week, but Camille didn't stop there. She released a public statement, not just to clear her name, but to redefine her legacy. In a live-streamed interview, she said, "I built Bennett Innovations from a basement office and a secondhand laptop. I've made mistakes, but I've never committed fraud. I was betrayed by someone I trusted, and I've spent every waking hour proving it. But this story is not just about betrayal. It's about accountability, about refusing to disappear when others want you to. Today, I reclaim my name." The board offered her reinstatement. Camille refused. "I'm not returning to rebuild something corrupted," she told Elias in a call. "I'm building something new, something clean." Elias smiled. "What will you call it?" Camille looked out her window at the city skyline. "Virayon," she said. "It means a small bird with a loud voice. This time no one will silence me." Camille Bennett was done playing defense. With her name cleared, the public tide turned. Slowly at first, like an oil tanker reversing course. Investors, journalists, former employees, they began to reevaluate the woman they'd watched. Burn and now saw rising from the ashes. But Camille wasn't interested in redemption for public approval. She wanted power on her terms, and so she built Virayon, not just a startup, but a movement. A tech-forward, ethics-first innovation lab focused on AI and clean energy applications for underserved communities. It wasn't flashy, and that was intentional. Camille no longer needed the glitz. She needed results. Her founding team was small. Ana Martinez, now co-founder and CFO. Nora Choi, who had left Bennett Innovations in quiet protest after Dalton's arrest, joined as chief technology officer, and a dozen others, young engineers, idealists, industry veterans, tired of corporate corruption. They worked out of a warehouse in Long Island City, walls still stained from its factory past. Camille insisted on keeping it that way, no glass towers. Not yet. Every empire starts in a trench, she reminded them. But even as Camille turned her eyes toward the future, ghosts from her past lingered. A class action lawsuit from minority shareholders of Bennett Innovations was filed, alleging corporate mismanagement during Dalton's brief reign. Camille was subpoenaed, not as a defendant, but as a key witness. She faced the possibility of reliving it all: the board meetings, the forged documents, the media frenzy. Anna advised her to tread carefully. The courts don't care about closure. They care about facts. Camille nodded. Then I'll give them facts, and I'll do it better than anyone else. At the deposition, Camille wore navy. Understated, sharp. No entourage, no theatrics, just the truth. Did you knowingly approve the sale of offshore assets under Mr. Dalton's leadership? No. I was no longer CEO when those decisions were made. Were you aware that your login credentials were used after your departure? Yes. And I provided digital forensic evidence of unauthorized access, verified by 2 independent analysts. What is your relationship to Bennett Innovations? Today? Camille met the attorney's eyes. None, and I intend to keep it that way. Public trust, however, is a finicky thing, and some wounds take longer to heal. During a Virion press conference 6 months later, where Camille unveiled a pilot AI program aimed at reducing energy waste in public housing, a reporter asked the inevitable, Camille, how do you respond to those who say Virion is just a vanity project to erase your past? She smiled without flinching. If it were, I'd be on a beach, sipping champagne and watching my stock portfolio recover. I'm here because I believe we can build technology without corruption. And if my past reminds people how easily systems can be manipulated, then it's not a stain. It's a warning. The room went quiet. One camera zoomed in on her eyes, now lined with both resilience and something softer. Grace earned the hard way. As Virion scaled, offers began to roll in. Venture capitalists, strategic partners, even government grants. Camille was careful. No major outside investment without ironclad terms. She remembered how quickly power could be stolen. She didn't intend to hand it over again. Still, one offer stood out. Artemis Global, a multinational tech firm known for its clean energy initiatives, offered a partnership, not an acquisition, not control, but shared research access and funding. Their CEO, Lena Hashmi, had followed Camille's story for years. You built something out of collapse, Lena told her during their meeting in Geneva. That's rare. Most people stay buried. Camille leaned forward. And most partnerships come with strings. What's yours? Lena smiled. Mutual elevation, no backdoors, no boards, just results. Let's build something too big for anyone to bury. The partnership was inked weeks later. It gave Virion reach across 3 continents. Meanwhile, the old world couldn't help but watch. Bennett Innovations floundered in Camille's absence. Shareholder trust never recovered. Product delays mounted. Lawsuits drained their capital. Julia Penrose quietly resigned, taking her fund's investments elsewhere. By year's end, Bennett was acquired in a fire sale, its name stripped, patents sold, legacy diluted into oblivion. Camille didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Instead, she focused on Project Resignate, a decentralized power grid model designed to empower rural communities in climate-vulnerable areas. The prototype was launched in Puerto Rico. Journalists flocked. Investors doubled down. Awards followed. But none of it matched what Camille felt when she stood beside an elderly couple in a mountain village, watching their lights flicker on after months of outage. This, she whispered to Anna, is what legacy looks like. But every rise has its cost. One night, after a fundraising gala, Camille returned to her apartment and found an envelope on her desk. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a photo. Her, standing with Elias Rocha in Lisbon. A timestamp from 14 months ago, and a note, some debts don't stay buried, M. Her blood ran cold. Dalton. But he was serving a 12-year sentence in federal prison. Unless... She called Anna immediately. Check all visitor logs, friends, lawyers, anyone he might have used as a proxy. Within 48 hours, they had it. A shell. Corporation making legal payments to a private investigator who once worked for Dalton's defense team. Someone was watching Camille. Still, Anna looked grim. You think he's planning something? Camille shook her head. He already has. She beefed up security, changed all credentials, and quietly moved her operations center to a new location. Publicly, nothing changed. But privately, Camille launched a digital counter-surveillance task force within Virion. The mission was twofold: protect the company and prepare for any legal ambush that might come. And then it did. 6 months later, Dalton filed a motion from prison claiming wrongful conviction, arguing that the evidence submitted to the SEC was unlawfully obtained and that Camille had orchestrated a malicious entrapment campaign. It was absurd. But in the world of litigation, absurdity could still cost millions. Camille's legal team went into overdrive. Anna flew to D.C. to meet with SEC officials. Nora combed through server logs to verify every file was retrieved lawfully. And Camille went to Lisbon. Elias was dying. Stage 4 cancer. He hadn't told her. You built something beautiful, Camille, he said from his hospital bed. Don't let shadows dim it. I won't, she whispered. But I'm tired of ghosts. Elias held her hand. Then bury them properly. Back in the States, Camille took her final stand. At a federal hearing to dismiss Dalton's motion, she took the stand once more, not to defend herself but to testify to the chain of evidence that brought Dalton down. I never hacked a system. I followed the trail he left behind. Dalton wasn't set up. He was sloppy. And he underestimated the one thing he never had: a conscience. The motion was denied. Dalton remained in prison. Years passed. Virion expanded into Africa, Southeast Asia, and parts of the American South. The company became a beacon for ethical tech, drawing talent not just for the salary, but for the mission. Camille never remarried. She never reclaimed a title as grand as CEO of a Fortune 500, but she found something else. And in a rare, unplanned interview, on a podcast hosted by a young woman who cited Camille as her inspiration, she was asked one last question. What would you tell your younger self, the Camille who just lost everything? Camille paused. I'd tell her, you're not broken, you're becoming. And what you build from that will be the truest version of you. The sky over Long Island City was overcast, yet the energy inside the Virion Innovation Hub buzzed like a storm of purpose. 5 years had passed since Camille Bennett rose from the ashes of betrayal and exile. 5 years since she dared to defy the industry that had chewed her up and spit her out. Now Virion had outgrown its original scope. With over 6,000 employees across 12 countries, its self-sustaining smart grid systems powered not just homes but entire communities, many of which had once been invisible to energy conglomerates. But Camille? She was preparing to leave it behind. At 48, she felt it. Not fatigue, not age, something deeper. A knowing. Anna had noticed it too. You're pulling away, Anna said one evening in the rooftop garden Camille had insisted they build above the main R&D wing. We all see it. Camille gave a small smile, her eyes fixed on the city skyline beyond. I built Virion to outlive me. I've done what I came to do. Anna paused. So what now? A think tank? Politics? Camille chuckled. No, the world doesn't need another tech billionaire playing philosopher king. I want silence. And soil. Anna blinked. You're serious. Deadly. Camille stood before her full executive board, every seat filled with people she'd personally vetted, mentored, and in some cases rebuilt from their broken careers. She wore her signature charcoal gray blazer and jeans. No flash, just steel. I'm stepping down, she said without preamble. A collective gasp rippled across the room. But I'm not disappearing. I'm transitioning to chair of the ethical Oversight Council, and Anna will take over as CEO. The systems we've built can stand. It's time I stopped gripping the wheel. Silence. Then Nora Choi stood. Camille, you are Virion. She shook her head. I was the architect. You are the city. But fate had one last test for her. Weeks before her official departure, a whistleblower from a Virion subsidiary in Kenya reported that a third-party contractor had secretly installed biometric surveillance tools in their energy hubs, violating every principle Camille had fought for. Anna brought the report to her, trembling. I'm so sorry, Camille. I didn't catch it in time. But Camille didn't flinch. She flew to Nairobi herself. No PR teams, no press releases. She met with village leaders, apologized, and terminated every contract associated with the breach. She liquidated that subsidiary and redirected funds to locally led alternatives. It wasn't just damage control, it was integrity in action. When she returned, the tech world erupted. Some accused her of overreach, of kneecapping her own company. Her answer? Sometimes legacy costs. On her last day as CEO, Camille recorded a message. Not for shareholders, not for press. For the next woman who would one day be betrayed, mocked, underestimated, and still dare to build. You are not your ruin. You are your response. They will call you naive, ambitious, reckless, until you win. And then they'll ask how you did it. Tell them, you started over, with honor, with fire, with no one's permission. Build, like the world depends on it, because it does. 6 years later, a university in Mumbai unveiled the Camille Bennett Institute for Ethical Technology. She wasn't there. She was in Oregon, living in a self-powered cabin she'd designed. She grew her vegetables, mentored online, took long hikes with no phone. Occasionally, she gave unlisted lectures under the name BC Ames. No one noticed. The initials spelled out Bennett Camille. She was finally free. One morning, she received a letter handwritten on lined paper. No return address. Dear Camille, they told me to keep quiet. They told me I'd lose everything. Then I found your speech. From Nairobi, I stayed, I fought, and we won. Thank you for showing me what's possible. Camille read it twice, then placed it in the drawer beside a faded photo of her younger self in front of the first Virion server rack. She smiled. No awards, no headlines, just impact, just legacy.